my favorite movie, 1,000 endings. You mean everything to me. I never know what's coming. Forever fascinating. Hope you don't stop running to me, 'cause I'll always be waiting. You are my cinema. I could watch you forever.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. And it's a very early morning here in London as we welcome you to our first ever inaugural CJ Cinema Summit Asia Pacific edition. Now, we are super thrilled to be doing this special, particularly for me. I've twice lived and worked in Asia, first in India and then in Singapore. So I know firsthand just how important and how big this cinema market is. We bring you this session as before together with our partners, Film Grail and The Big Picture. So thank you very much to them. Now, before we get started, for those of you joining for the first time, welcome. We are very thrilled to be able to do this in your time zone. And to those who have stayed up late in the US or very early in Europe, welcome to you too. A couple of housekeeping rules or more. First of all, if you experience any problems with the sound or the picture, the easiest thing is just either to refresh the browser or to close the browser and come back in. In 9 cases out of 10, that fixes any problem you may have. Secondly, you will see there's a comment section, and it's already getting pretty busy over there with people joining in the conversation, and we do urge you to join in. But if you have a question for us, then specifically we ask that you don't put in the comment section here, but in the questions section box up there. So we can put the questions to our speakers and to our panelists. And we've got a very packed schedule today, so I'm not going to waste much more time talking about this. As always, if you have any ideas, suggestions, comments during the week in between the sessions, please email us, tips@cellulojunkie.com. And finally, we also have a community forum where the discussion continues also. So if you want to post anything or start a poll or have a discussion, join us at community.cjcinemasummit.com. But now I'd like to bring on board my co-host for this session, Jay Sperling-Reich, joining us from late in Los Angeles. Good evening to you, Sperling.
Good evening. Good to see you. Well, and good morning, I should say, from where you are.
It is indeed Wednesday for me. It's still Tuesday for you. So, well, I suppose we should kick off with a bit of a global overview, or rather Asia overview in this case. We're covering a lot of markets, and we have some truly significant. We have the world's second and third biggest cinema markets in China and Japan. We have the biggest screen count in the world in China. We have the most tickets sold of any market in India. We have technology innovation coming out of places like Korea and New Zealand. We have fabulous multiplex in Thailand. It's really, where do you start? I suppose the fact that China has been going through this crisis longer than all of us, with the cinemas closed for more than 100 days now. And that's why we're very keen to be hearing soon from our first speaker. But Sperling, it's also true that not every cinema has been closed during all this time in Asia, isn't that right?
Well, yes, that's true. And in South Korea, they were able to keep some cinemas open, not all. But the problem was, of course, there were no new releases, at least none from Hollywood. And no distributor in South Korea was really all that eager to distribute films into the market, given that the attendance was very low. And it was a kind of a fear of gathering in large groups and in enclosed spaces. So the box office plummeted in March and April. So if you were a distributor, that's really not an ideal time to be putting out a film.
No, that's true. And we did see also other territories keeping going longer than definitely many European markets. I know that Singapore was one of the last ones to close. And again, we want to touch upon this in the discussions we have. It's what these markets have to teach us, the rest of the world, because it's not just a question of how they've handled the COVID-19 outbreak. They previously had other outbreaks which impacted cinemas, such as SARS and MERS. So in many ways, this region has been better prepared to handle what we're all going through at the moment. So I think with that, I think it's time to turn over to our first guest and speaker on the session. So I'd like to welcome to the virtual stage Vista China's Lawrence Wang, who's also, I should mention, he is Vice President of the Shanghai Film Distributors and Exhibitors Association. Thank you very much for joining us, Lawrence.
Yeah, hello, Patrick. Yeah,
Very
hello.
good to have you with us.
Yeah, hello, everyone. You know, I am so excited to see people from around the world, and it's such a long time to have a gathering with industry friends.
No, it really is great. And I thought we were going to have a lot of people joining all the way from Auckland to Abu Dhabi, but they really joined us from all over the world. You know, we're having people staying up past midnight here in Michigan and New Jersey as well, and people joining early from Europe. So truly, although it's an Asia Pac, it's also a global summit. But now starting with you, cinemas in China have been closed for over 100 days now. So what has been going on? Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, I just did a calculation. Actually, the cinema has been closed for 110 days since the January 23rd. Wuhan city is locked down, and the second day, the January 24th, all the cinema gets shut, and we missed the whole Chinese New Year period. So it's estimated the box office in China will be, for this year, it's minimum 30 billion loss on the box office. So it's a big hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from the cinema end, from the cinema industry, during the Chinese New Year, there's one film called Lost in Russia is released online. Actually, they're supposed to releasing the cinema, and that's why all the industry people get panic, get kind of feel betrayed and everything. So but right now the cinema is seem really in good condition. We're waiting for the reopen notice from the Film Bureau, from my end, because we're behind the cinemas, we can see all the cinemas are doing different things. They have a lot of new ideas. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of impressive how many of these ideas really that are now being embraced by cinemas were first came up in China. So first of all, as you said, the conflict over direct to video releasing of Lost in Russia, which really anticipated the whole Trolls Universal disagreement, shall we say, between cinemas and Universal. But also things such as, the e-commerce of popcorn and other concession items. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your vice president of the Shanghai Exhibitor and Distributor Association. I want to know a little bit about what sort of discussions have been going on between lobby organizations trying to persuade the government, whether it's Beijing or regional governments, to help with subsidies, discussions with mall owners in terms of rents. What kind of things have been going on behind the scenes there that you can tell us about?
Okay, so we've been very busy with help the cinema to reopen the cinemas, and there's a couple things we have done. First of all, we talked to the government, because the industry, the film industry, is probably the only industry is still closed in China. So all the restaurant, karaoke, nightclub, it's all opened. So then we come to the government to say what's going on, why just the cinema industry. So then we almost, I think it's likely we get the verbal commitment from the Film Bureau to relax the 8.3% on the ticket tax. Okay, so in China, 8.3% goes to the film bureau on the each ticket box office. So this year, they're not gonna charge that. And also, we help cinemas to renegotiate the lease with the landlord, and also ask landlord to give 2 to 3 months standard free rent. Okay, so but we say, as association, we cannot force the landlord to give the free rent, but we do help the cinema to renegotiate. Then we talk to the landlord, you should help us, you should help the cinema to go through the hardest period. You can say no for the applications, but if you don't help us, then next time if you want to open a cinema in your shopping mall, then we're probably not gonna approve it. So just get the industry together. And also another thing we did is we come out to the safety guidance of movie watching. Okay, so basically we set up all the standards, like the occupancy cannot go over 50%. All right, you have to empty seats, between the each audience. So to just give the confidence to the moviegoers, also give the confidence to the government. Actually, it should be okay. It's safe to watch a film in the cinema, so nothing gonna happen. So I think that part is really, really important. And also the last part is now we are trying to lobby the Shanghai government to provide $10 million subsidy for the cinemas. By if the cinema go to a bank to ask for a short-term loan, then the government will use that funds to cover the 50% of the interest. So the total funding for Shanghai city is $10 million. That funding has been approved.
Well, that was going to be my question. Are there any trade bodies there in China that are lobbying the government? I guess the answer is yes, you're doing that. Is that happening in other parts of the country as well?
Yes, that's right. Because in the movie industry, we do talk all the time, and also we understand they close the cinema for the big good. Then we know the cinema industry in China is only 60 billion box office for the industry. Comparing to other industry, it's a small one, but we do communicate with the government all the time to discuss the solution and to discuss the subsidy, because the government don't want the industry just disappear. So and in that area, the government is really good. They talk about, they tell us, okay, to be patient. All right, there's there will be a bright future.
No, we all hope so, and you've been waiting longer than anybody for cinemas to reopen now. I was wondering, what have the cinemas been doing this time in terms of staying in touch with their customer, the loyalty members? Because I know that there have been a very close link, and obviously China has gone further than pretty much any other country in terms of turning ticketing into an e-commerce solution. And I know that Vista has been a big part of that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think during the COVID-19 period, I think the keyword for everybody is online, is internet. Okay, all the internet company, they're making online shopping. They're doing really good. So the cinema realized after, in China, all the cinema executives thought, okay, the cinema gonna close 2 months, but now it's close to 4 months. So we realized, okay, how about my loyalty members? So were they gonna forget about us? Where are they? So we see a lot of exhibitors actually upgrading their loyalty system. Also, they are building their their apps, and to engage with their loyalty members online. So how do you do that? Because in China during this period, there's a very popular thing. It's called a live streaming lifestyle, the online streaming cell. Okay, so in China, they're one of the KOL sold 260 million US dollars stock just in 2 hours. Okay, wow. So because everybody is online, So for the cinemas right now, they try to create their KOL online and get their loyalty members to have interactions online. I know one cinema is doing a really good job with they selling red wine. They're selling red wines and they're selling lobsters. And then if you buy that, they're online in their online shop, then you will get 2 tickets for free. Of course, that's for the future, right? So yeah, it's worked really good.
I love that.
Yeah,
so one of
I think even after the cinema opens, people actually more executives realize the online solution is also very important. Online interaction with their loyalty members. Maybe we're talking about maybe in the future the cinema will sell offline tickets. Go to the big screen experience. Maybe also sell the e-ticket online at the same time. So, but you have to equip yourself to be able to do that, to cope with the future. So that's a plan for some executives.
That's a great insight, and thank you for that. I believe we have some questions for you now from our audience members. So Sperling, can you flash up whatever it is people want to ask Lawrence?
Well, Lawrence, there's one question here that, and I think I might have to figure out what they're saying. Jeremy Clark is asking, are theaters, and that's TRE theaters, not cinemas, open in China? So I think what is being asked is, cinemas were asked to close down, but what about live theater? Are all theaters of all types closed?
Yes, they are closed. And last Friday, actually, the central government sent the announcement says the cinema and the theater can open if they apply. That's last Friday's information. So it's up to the local government. If the theater and they want to reopen, they have to apply. But for the cinema business, we double confirmed. We still need to wait for the Film Bureau's announcement. But the answer is no, they are closed at this stage.
Okay.
No. Now, we have to start wrapping it up, unfortunately. I just wanted, Lawrence, if there's any final words or messages you have in terms of for the rest of Asia and for the rest of the world in terms of what we can, what we should be expecting from and what we can be learning from China as we all slowly move towards the reopening of cinemas at different dates and different territories.
It's in China, the cinema hasn't opened yet, so there's not much experience we can share at this stage. But we actually doing a lot of things during this period. But I think my word to everybody is just stay strong, stay powerful. Believe in the offline experience. People require that forever. It's everything will be back to normal soon. Good luck.
That's super. Thank you very much for that, Lawrence. That's very inspiring and insightful. So now before we go over to our next guest and we say goodbye to Lawrence, thank you. Obviously, while cinemas remain closed in mainland China, in Greater China, obviously it has been different. For example, in Hong Kong, cinemas are starting to reopen. And another territory which has seen longer cinema openings has been Taiwan, and we've got a special message from Taipei, which we'd like to share with you. So Sperling, if you could cue up the video, please.
目前台湾共计有116家的电影院，放映厅数有906厅。受到这个新冠肺炎的疫情影响，电影院面临了人数锐减、没有新片可以放映的困境。那文化部以这个防疫为重、纾困并行、振兴在后的原则来协助电影院渡过难关。那针对防疫措施的部分，政府每周会定期配送口罩给戏院工会，提供电影院第一线服务人员使用，也会配合政府的相关指引措施，在他们的工作期间全程佩戴口罩。另外，中央的疫情指挥中心也针对这个大型的营业场所有防疫的指引。那除了加强业者的自我管理之外，那电影院常有人群聚集、长时间近距离的接触，所以有感染的风险。因此，我们建议采这个间隔座来降低入场的人数，也会要求民众佩戴口罩、测量体温。如果发现有发烧、呼吸道等症状，我们也会劝导民众避免进入，也会协助退票。那针对纾困的部分，文化部在3月推出了艺文纾困的1.0，也纳入了电影的映演业者，包括这个减轻营运困难的补助、因应提升的补助。在5月即将推出的艺文纾困2.0，也会针对营业额衰退50%以上，没有办法持续营运的艰困事业，只要你不裁员、不放无薪假、不减薪超过2成，就可以补助员工薪资的4成，每人每月上限2万元，补助3个月，同时也会给予补助一次性的营运资金。那另外我们也把这个艺文产业纳入这个经济部的中小企业贷款的补贴方案，提供旧有贷款的展延、营运资金的贷款、振兴资金的贷款，也会来进行利息的补贴。在艺文纾困2.0协助电影院者这样子大型的艺文事业资金的需求，文化部会秉持着挺事业、雇员工、协助自营工作者的精神，陪伴艺文产业渡过难关。
And a big thank you to the Minister of Culture from Taipei and the Big Picture for putting that together. I don't know how many of you spotted in the graphics there at the end, but an interesting point is that View Cinemas, which we mostly think of as a UK and European company, does have a big multiplex actually in Taipei. And have been going there, so stretches all over the world. But now we turn to our main panel for the day. And I'd like to welcome to the virtual stage Mr. Alok Tandon from CEO of Inox Movies in India, and Gerald Dibayawan, sorry, mangled your name there, CEO of Cinepolis Indonesia. Gentlemen, welcome very much, both of you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having us on the show. And nice to see so many names over here who are friends and they are part of this webinar. And I can also see lots of colleagues of mine from Inox here. So great to be in touch with everyone.
Now, we're super thrilled to have you on, especially as you were a wonderful host to me. It's only a few months ago, but it feels like years ago, to the reopening of your megaplex in Mumbai, which was truly a spectacular experience. It is one of the most innovative and impressive cinema theaters that I've ever been to. So it's an extra thrill to be able to welcome you in return onto our stage. So
thanks a lot.
Starting off with you, Alok, can you tell us a little bit about, fill people in on what's been happening in India since the COVID outbreak and where you find yourselves now?
Well, just to tell you that we all know that cinemas in India are totally shut. And we have always believed that cinema depicts the soft power of countries. and they are the biggest contributors to the emotional and the experiential economy of any country, and especially in India. As you rightly said, that there have been lots of other pandemics. SARS was one of them. Yes, we've had quite a few crises till now in the past, but it goes without saying that what we are facing today is absolutely unparalleled. Uh, it's unprecedented, and it's not in the ambit of any business continuity plan. Uh, if I talk about India, we have about 9,500 screens, and 3,000 of them are multiplexes. And today, the entire thing has come to a grinding halt. We release about 2,000 titles every year. We sell about 2 billion tickets. And we Indians, we love our movies. I think that's in our DNA, and that will always continue to happen like this. And now imagine that such a thriving and a booming space has come to a screeching halt with virtually no inflow of revenues, and the impact is massive. Uh, as I said earlier, that the cinemas contribute to the emotional economy, and we are honestly missing all that emotions, the getting together in the lobbies with family, friends, the hustle bustle, and we're just waiting to bounce back as soon as we get directives from the government of India or various state governments that we are ready to open. Uh, I think that we all want to breathe differently and come out and enjoy our movies on the big screen with family and friends.
I love that expression that cinemas contribute to the emotional economy. That is such a wonderful concept of, you can't just put a monetary value on this, even though it is, dollars and cents and rupees business too. So if I could turn to you, Gerald, now, if you could fill us in a little bit about the situation in Indonesia. Obviously, cinemas closed, but what more can you tell us?
Great on the here. Probably a little behind the world in terms of pandemic has progressed to, and reporting in Indonesia is not standard that we'd expect in the West. So the numbers seem a little bit low, but also in contrast to the West, I think Indonesians have a much more optimistic view of where this is going to go, and they're more confident in the recovery. So from that perspective, we've been down, cinemas closed in early March, and we would expect that the cinemas would remain closed for some time to come. I think the government has indicated that we will be allowed to go early to mid-July, along with the reopening of the rest of the economy, which is due to start sometime in June. So for us, it's been a situation where, as Alok said, this is unprecedented, as we're aware, unprecedented in the history of mankind, I guess. So from that perspective, the Indonesian people, along with Cinepolis and our competitors and the whole industry, I think is finding a way forward in this pandemic. I think in the initial stages, our initial reaction was to protect our team, make sure that everyone gets through this pandemic safely from a health perspective, but also from an economic perspective as well. That's not to say it hasn't been, and there will not be any more pain. There will be more pain for all of us, but the idea was to try to get us all through together. So that was the first one. Conserving cash, I think, has also been high on the agenda, along with most other companies around the world. With the exception of those that are online, I think everyone views this pandemic, apart from the health crisis that it poses, but also as a liquidity crisis. So we've taken out all stops to try to conserve our cash to get the team through. And obviously, we believe in the future of cinema. We believe the power of storytelling, and we believe that cinema will come through in the end. So we have worked to protect our assets, making sure that our cinemas remain ready to open when the directives come. And I think just to address the notion of reopening, we're taking a view of conservation rather than preservation. I can just expand on that a little bit. To conserve something is to protect it from, permanent harm and to allow it to continue forward in a different set of circumstances, different environment, rather than preserving something which I think you'll all agree in one way or another has probably changed permanently. From whether whatever you think about the release windows or how people are going to attend cinemas with the social distancing parameters and whatnot, the way that we go to the cinemas, the way that we interact with other patrons is going to inexorably change. So we're taking observation. How do we move forward in the future with cognizance that the world has changed and we have to change along with it?
No, that's a very important point about changing, but also I like the concept of conservation. So obviously Cinepolis is part of a global, or you're part of a global empire that spans from Mexico into Europe, and also your friendly competitors in India. I assume you must be having conversations with your colleagues in other countries and exchanges of ideas and learnings. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Patrick. I think we're the most diverse cinema group and operating different countries. Well, this gives us a breadth of exposure to what governments, what other competitors, and what different societies are doing and how they're reacting to this crisis. And from a cinema viewpoint, it's an opportunity for us to learn from not only our sister companies from around the world, but from many other competitors from around the world as well. I want to stress that I think it's really important that the cinema industry needs to work together. Competitors need to work together. And indeed, with Cinema 21, CGV, Platinum, and other cinema operators here in Indonesia, we are working hand in glove with them. All of us are towards helping to convince the authorities and convincing the audience that when it is time to come back, we still offer a very affordable form of entertainment, but one that is also safe and one that is secure. And that's really important for us to understand that it only takes one or two incidents in whoever's cinema, whether that's ours or whether that's an independent. And if COVID clusters start to form around an outbreak in one or two locations, then that could be a game changer for the whole industry. So it's very important that we all work together to bring about the best in health standards so that the audience as well as the authorities can build that confidence in what we have to offer.
Well, I know one way that people will start to come back to cinemas, of course, is through the content itself, as you kind of alluded to, sanitation being another. And there's lots of questions here about sanitation and about, how theaters can what the best practices are for sanitation and hygiene. But of course, content is king. And we have a question from Debbie Stanford Christensen here, who is in Dubai. And she wants to know, and this, I guess, might be for Alok, when will we start to see some tentative release dates for Bollywood titles? Because of course her patrons there are kind of eagerly awaiting new Bollywood titles. Right. So I don't know if you have any inside information, Alok, but could you tell us when can we expect new Bollywood films?
Well, we have been in touch with a few producers and a few studios, so no affirmative date has been given out. But yes, they all are waiting for multiplexes to open, to government to tell us what we have to do. And then I think they will come up with dates. Then they'll come up with the marketing plans, market their movies first for a couple of weeks before they hit the theaters. So it's anybody's guess in India. We were the first to shut down, and we may be the last to open. But then, as I said, that all studios just are playing a wait and watch game. And then only they will devise and design their strategies, how to go about to release the films. But no fixed date has come out till now.
Well, let me ask you this. There's been some question about cinemas from Latin America to North America to Europe, about whether small cinemas, maybe not the big chains like a Cinepolis, like an Inox, whether smaller cinemas, smaller cinema operators will be able to weather this storm. So I guess for both of you, Alec and Gerald, and Alec, I'll go to you first. Will smaller exhibitors be able to make it out the other side of this? How many cinemas won't reopen?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and it's a very hard decision which those people will have to make because they don't have a strong balance sheet as we at Inox have. We can weather the storm. We were a net debt-free company as of 31st of March 2020. But you're right that there are some operators who will go belly up. We hope not. We wish the entire industry comes together and fights for them and ensures that they survive. But having said this, there are lots of cinema hall operators who just live on a weekly earning and a weekly collection. And that unfortunately has not happened till now. So you're right that it could happen that the businesses could come to a grinding halt. But having said that, I think that that's the way the government has to pitch in, where everybody else from the fraternity has to come to see that they survive and they do not shut shop, because that's the interest of the entire film industry. We do not want cinemas and theaters shutting down. We want more cinemas to be there so that the movie is shown to lots of people into the hinterlands of our country. And if more movies are shown and if more screens are there, there'll be people making more movies also. So it'll be nice that these people continue operating and we as an industry and the government come together and help them in whatever way we can.
Gerald, is it the same in Indonesia? I mean, can the government help if there are operators that are in trouble?
I think it would be naive for us to think that the Indonesian government has high on their priority list. You know, when you've got a population, the fourth largest population in the world, with a high rate of poverty and unemployment, I think there are bigger fish to fry for the Indonesian government. But it is a growing industry, and we do provide what I believe, and I think what we all believe, is a truly vital service to society. In that, you know, we are a platform of connection. You know, movies are a great platform for connection. They dare us to dream. They dare us to, they scare us. They make us laugh. They dare us to dream. They make the world a better place. So I definitely firm believe cinemas should come back. But to Alok's point, that some of the smaller locations, some of the smaller operators may find it difficult to become a tour in the future. I think back to my earlier point about conservation. Whether you're large or small, this pandemic offers you an opportunity to look forward and find new ways of doing things, whether you're doing the old things in a new way, or whether you're finding new things to do, new ways to engage and monetize your audience. I think that's the challenge for all of us. I share Alok's hope that all cinemas come through this unscathed, particularly in a growing market like Indonesia. There's plenty of room for everyone. So I would think that notwithstanding the lack of government support, but I think the community will continue to support cinemas by going to the movies.
I've got a question for Alok. You were featured in an excellent article in Times of India day before yesterday, where you talked about how you're preparing for the reopening, and I was very excited to see that this kind of innovative thinking that I know characterized so much of what Inox is doing is also going into preparations for the future, such as looking at a more limited concessions offering, but with a hero combo. So I'm sharing this article now in the comments section for anybody who wants to read it, and I urge you to read it. But I was wondering, Alok, if you could speak a little bit more to this about preparations for the future and how you apply innovative thinking to reopening.
Right. Well, let me tell you, Patrick, that what we have done in this lockdown, which we say was not required, but then it is there, so let's make the best of it, is that we divided our approach into three different buckets. One was cost, one is preparation for resumption, and the third was advocacy with the government and other stakeholders. So if I can talk about this cost, what we did was that we gave a very serious look to all our P&L line items, and we try to save as much money as possible. The entire cost structure of the company has been re-engineered over this period, and we have taken some very, very stringent cash management ways of controlling it. Where preparation for resumption is there, what we have done is that we started earlier, about 4 or 5 weeks back, brainstorming with all our senior executives, and we created new standard operating procedures that ensured that when we come back absolutely bouncing. We come back with an aim just to not just to welcome our guests, but to have a great a P&L, a great balance sheet again. And today what we are doing is that we are briefing and training our team members on those new SOPs. We are working on intensifying our hygiene protocols. We are in constant touch with our patrons through various marketing initiatives. And we are also speaking with the government and reaching out to them for various, I would say, things which we require from them. We have made representations through the association, and we are engaging with all our stakeholders to get more value from our existing relationships. When you talked about a combo hero, yes, we take pride in serving about 250 food items in a particular place, but I think that will be stopped for some time. For the next couple of months, we will have to go down to basics. We will have to make menus which are either easy to dispense over the counter, which are pre-packed, and also when we cook our items, it should be fast, because we don't want lots of people to stand in the lobby and stand in the concession lines. So maybe a pasta which can be tossed quickly, a pizza which can be baked quickly in 15-20 minutes. So we are also looking at the entire menu composition. We are re-engineering what we sell, how we sell. It has to be all cashless at the concession counter, apart from the box office. It has to be via various wallets and credit cards, but no physical money transaction. So we are working on all these things. We are also ensuring that when we dispense something, how do we hand it over to a guest? So those SOPs are being made. So working on various things at the same time, ensuring a great comeback for Inox when we reopen, and our guests feel safe and comfortable in the environment which we would like to welcome them back in. So these are the few things which we are doing, Patrick, to ensure that when we come back more strong, more smarter, and more battle-hardened.
That's excellent. Oh.
Well, and to that end, Gerald, let me ask you this, and I may know the answer to this question. There's been some questions about new builds and whether new builds are continuing during the pandemic, or what plans are for new builds. But I guess I'm going to expand that and ask, what are your plans at Cinépolis Indonesia for reopening? And you talk about maybe doing things differently in the future, and kind of expanding on what you've done in the past and growing it in that regard. What are your plans for the future in terms of doing things differently, and I guess the questions about new builds, if they're continuing?
Well, I think it'd be naive for us to think that everything is just going to return back to normal. And as you're all well aware, our cinemas are dependent on the developments that we go and inhabit in terms of shopping malls. So we have to obviously engage with our mall partners, one of which is Lippo Malls Indonesia, the biggest real estate development, the biggest retail real estate development company in Indonesia. So we have to be cognizant of their plans and what they think the future holds. And we've got to remind ourselves that this pandemic is not just something that impacts the cinema business, but life as we know it. So we're taking a lead from the malls themselves. I'm confident to the big developer will take a longer term view on growth, and will continue to develop, perhaps maybe at a slower pace than what they had actually planned. Will follow suit, but perhaps maybe some of the smaller regional developers who have encountered some financial difficulties, there might be some turbulence in the future that might perhaps slow down the growth path. But I come back to what I said earlier. We have a fundamental belief in the viability of cinema. I think all people on this call perhaps maybe share that point of view. Perhaps maybe some have a little bit more skepticism or doubt now in their minds. But look, Cinépolis, and particularly Cinépolis Indonesia, we have a fundamental belief that the cinema industry is here to stay. I share a lot of that we need to become smarter, stronger, effective. As I said before, conserving means finding ways for us to exist and prosper and grow in albeit changed circumstances. So we believe that. We believe in the fundamentals of the Indonesian economy as well. We're one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And I don't think that's going to change significantly because of COVID. Yes, there'll be people encountering hardships, but overall, I think the trajectory will remain fairly much the same as what it was going into this pandemic. So we're positive and we'll continue to grow, but obviously with a more cautious footing in at least the near future.
Thank you very much for that. And we really appreciate both of you coming on to talk about this. So we have to move on. But before we do, I would like to just find any final words from you both, starting with you, Alok Ji.
Thank you, Patrick. Well, I would say that the biggest learning, I think, that which is there is that in these couple of weeks, we have understood the importance of conversation with our stakeholders, our employees, our suppliers, the studio partners. So one has to keep on talking to them. That's very, very important. The other thing is that it's very heartening to know that the solidarity is there amongst the industry members. We all are together in it. And as everybody is saying just now, that once we come out of it, if you can sustain this phase, there would be no looking back, and it will only be an upward journey from here. With regards to the future, I would like to say that we are absolutely certain that cinemas across the country and across the world will witness the same vibrancy and sentimental position what they had earlier. So everything will be back to normal. And we have complete faith in the passionate cinema lovers of our country. And we know for sure that the appetite is there for the giant screen, and it would know no bounds whenever normalcy is restored. So I would say that's the way I look at the future, and things would be back to normal. I say it's a blip for the next couple of months, but then we'll be back to doing what we do best, that is to show movies.
Thank you. Gerald?
Yeah, you know, if you look at a holistic viewpoint, the human race has been the most species on Earth, not harder, faster, or stronger than other species, but because we work well together. And we're a social being. And stories are very central to that. And movies are the best way of telling stories, of conveying our emotions, our feelings, our viewpoints, and whatnot. So that's always going to be part of the human condition. And I don't necessarily think that things are going to come back to normal, but I do think that things are going to prosper and grow, maybe in a different way. Cinema has survived pandemics before, the Spanish flu, many a century ago. We've survived world wars, we've survived, you know, SARS, everything. We've survived everything. We've survived TV, we've survived DVD streaming and whatnot. So I think COVID-19 is going to spell the end of cinema. I think it will force us to take a different viewpoint in terms of how we progress and how we move forward. So I guess the words of encouragement for everyone on this call and beyond is that cinema is here to stay. We need to be realistic and understand that there are changes afoot, and people's habits and behavior will change. But therein lies an opportunity for us to cement our importance in society as a very, very important part of being human. So movies are here to stay, cinemas are here to stay.
Well, Alok and Gerald, I'd like to extend my thank you, as did Patrick, for joining us and being willing to talk about you know, what's going on both in India and in Indonesia during what is a difficult time for the entire world. Now, we promised you a surprise at the end here, and that is that we are going to jump over to Japan, the third largest cinema market in the world, where we will be speaking with Aya Umezu, who I spoke with earlier today. And I'm going to play that video now.
And the attendance, box office revenue has been,
And China, residents and a gross box office of 2.3 billion. It is the third largest box office behind the United States and China. Every year, the Japanese films that are released account for about 54 to 55% of the box office, with imported films making up the rest. Here to tell us what is happening in Japan due to the coronavirus and COVID-19, at least in the cinema industry, is Aya Umezu, the CEO of GEM Partners. Aya, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Can you tell us a little bit about what GEM Partners is and does?
Yes, thank you. GEM Partners is a research and data digital marketing company. So we focus on entertainment industry, mainly the cinema industry.
And so you're doing a lot of tracking of films that are either being released or about to be released. Is that correct?
Yes. So what we do is kind of tracking of the titles. It's kind of like similar to NRG. So it's like the awareness and definite interest, and also box office estimate. And then we also do a lot of research and digital marketing, digital agency work for the movie entertainment industry.
And so in that role, you're working with both exhibitors and distributors. Is that right?
Yes, correct. And we also serve VOD companies and physical or the broadcast business entities.
I'm going to get to VOD in just a moment, actually, because that's very important, at least here in the United States and in Europe. What's been happening with premium VOD has been very important. But I guess one question we have is, at the beginning of this year, I mean, certainly last year was, over $2 billion in box office in Japan. And now January arrives, there's a coronavirus pandemic going on by around March. What was going on in Japan? When did cinemas shut down? Did all cinemas shut down? How has this COVID-19 pandemic actually affected the cinema industry in Japan?
So the coronavirus has infected the cinema industry to a very tremendous level. But it's not a but the cinema started to shorten their business hours in March, but actually they were operating in March, and they started to close down over the weekends in early April. And then the most of the cinemas were completely shut down by mid-April. And so, the attendance, box office revenue has been, going down 50% compared to last year during March, and almost zero by mid-April.
And so were all cinemas shut down, or were some cinemas still open? I know in the US and in parts of Europe, there have been drive-in theaters that have all of a sudden gained a huge resurgence, because you can go to the drive-in and the drive-ins are now open. There's no other cinema that's open in the US, or at least there wasn't until recently. Were there any cinemas open in Japan as of, I guess it was April 18th, or was it completely shut?
I think almost all the cinema chains, like a large cinema chain, were all completely shut down. But I hear that there were some small-sized cinemas that were still operating at a very limited capacity.
Well, and so mid-April is actually quite late. Here in the United States, we closed down in March. Of course, China has been closed since January. All the cinemas in China still are not open, and they've been closed down now. They're going on their 5th month. In Japan, you've only been closed for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Has the government gotten involved, and have there been industry trade organizations that have gotten involved to help the cinema and film industry cope during this time?
I think there isn't, clear support measures by the government, and I don't think the trade organization is so active to the support industry compared to the U.S. Yes, yeah. So that's a situation in terms of the support. But there has been a lot of active campaigns among like the crowdfunding, or
Okay.
to say, and also the virtual cinemas, so that they where they split the revenue among the distributors and the exhibitors. So I think that's also happened in Japan. So, but that's among the the independent business entities.
Okay, so actually, I was going to ask you about the virtual cinemas and really what cinemas were doing during their time off, or while they were shut down. I don't think they would consider it time off, but have cinemas? You mentioned virtual cinemas, so they've been doing VOD to some extent here in the U.S. and in certain, even in China, Korea, and in Europe. They've been selling concessions, curbside concessions, where people will buy concessions from the theaters just to keep them alive. Has that been going on? Has it been the larger chains that have been doing it, or some of the smaller chains, or maybe nobody's doing it at all? And can you tell us, kind of a follow-up to that, is what is going on with virtual cinema and what titles are available?
So what they were doing in the first question, I think, is what the cinemas were doing during the shutdown. I don't think I have heard about selling concessions like as a takeout, and at least it's not. I don't think they were. It was a big thing among the big cinema chains. But the other thing about the virtual cinemas is also doing a lot of campaign, and that's been done by not the big cinemas, but the smaller size cinema exhibitors. One is called Uplink. It's kind of like a Metrograph or Angelica in New York. It's a small specialty movie cinema. And then what's interesting about them is that they do the distribution and exhibit, and also they screen movies in cinema. And also what they already had a VOD platform. So they, after the shutdown, they started showing their titles over on their VOD platform.
Now, has that been successful for them, or I mean, is it just kind of breaking even, or is it not really moving the needle at all?
It's hard to say. I think it meant a lot, that, and it created the atmosphere that, okay, VOD, now the cinema is shut down, you can have VODs, but the titles were very art house specialty type titles. So I wonder, and I don't think it meant a big business as big as actually showing in the cinema.
And these were imported titles or domestic titles?
They had both local titles and also the imported titles.
And so now you've been closed now for almost going on 1 month in Japan. What are cinemas doing now? What is the plan to reopen cinemas, and how do they plan on reopening? I mean, you may not be able to answer that, but has there been any announcement at all about cinemas reopening in Japan and what releases might be available once they do?
Yes, actually, the small cinemas and also some big cinema chains are opening already. Some have already opened last week, and the one of the biggest cinema chain, Toho Cinemas, has just announced that they're opening in some areas starting from this Friday. So things, it was shut down in mid-April, but now by end of mid May, things are moving towards how we can open the cinema and start operating.
And are these in populated areas or less populated areas, or
it's among the less populated areas.
And is there one title, one release that cinema operators and maybe even distributors are hoping will kickstart the movie theater, movie theaters reopening? And is there a fear that maybe audiences won't show up?
Yes, there is a fear that audience would not be, willing to come to the theater. So what they're doing is to, the sanitization, all the safety measures are in place. And in terms of the titles, they are showing the titles from the past that were very popular. So there are not that a lot. There isn't a lot of new titles showing, and it's different that since Tenet is actually planned to, but it's it had been the release date was scheduled in September in Japan. So there is no, simultaneous movement for Tenet in Japan, unfortunately. So that's very different, I think. And Mulan has not yet announced their date yet. So, there is no, big title that, that is regarded as or expected to, kick start the cinema business. Maybe the Doraemon, it's a kids cinema title. It was supposed to open in March and it got postponed, and it's still on early August. So yeah, although the cinemas are already starting to open, we don't see a big title in June, July that is sure to be released.
Well, Aya, thank you very much for taking the time to fill us in on what is happening in Japan and the cinema industry. Would have, if we had more time, I'd love to ask you about what's going on with film production, but certainly we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Okay, well, thank you.
But Sperling, did you want to have any final words in that interview?
No, I mean, you might have heard there was a little hissing sound, and that was actually in the building that I was in. They were the government was broadcasting a message informing citizens of Japan or of that particular building that they should, shelter in place and use their discretion not to go outside and to try and stay off the streets. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. Here we're talking about a pandemic and what it is doing to cinemas, and the government is actually actively inside a building in Japan making announcements to that effect.
See, I'm disappointed. This being Japan, I'd imagine a robot walking down the street and broadcasting this message. I'd expect nothing less from my favorite movie territory of all. But I'm afraid that's all we have time for. We really appreciate all of our contributors, Lawrence, Alok, Gerald, and Aya, for coming on this week and talking to us. And we also thank you, all the people who tuned in this week and made comments, questions, and so on. Please remember, if you have any comments, suggestions, points of view to us, you can email us, tips@celluloidjunkie.com. And of course, we have our community board where you're always welcome to make contributions or join the discussion. It's community.cjcinemasummit.com. But that's all from us from this inaugural CJ Cinema Summit Asia Pacific edition. Who knows? There may be more in the future. But for now, thank you, goodbye, and stay safe.